So there are three factors that I want to talk about that are impacting Houston storage. In addition to that, I do want to talk briefly about sales transactions, give you a quick update on that. We have a total of 10 slides here, but I'm only going to focus on the first 5 of them. The last 5 relate to a national and Texas survey that Argus did in the last week and a half. I think it will be instructive for those of you that want to see it. Since we're not able to get through all of those with the brief time today, Faith and I are very happy to send it out. Teresa, I think you also said that we could send it to you and you would send it out to all of the participants. So let's get started on that. The top three topics that are worth talking about. The first is the development pipeline. I can tell you it is shrinking, fortunately. And then there's the impact of COVID-19. And the oil and gas sector is still a very meaningful part of Houston's economic picture. So I wanted to focus on that as well because there are more layoffs that are coming. With respect to Houston's development pipeline, we're looking at some of the lowest numbers that we've seen in recent years. If you look at the top section, it shows that we have about 1.5 million square feet in the pipeline. That excludes prospective. We don't yet take those seriously. But in terms of the 1.5 million, a third of it is under construction, which is another good sign. There are 9 properties that make up that category of 455,000 square feet. None of those 9 properties are being developed by REITs. That's also another good sign. And all but 2 of those 9 are in fringe communities and cities around Houston, like Conroe and Porter, New Caney, Alvin, and some other smaller communities that are around the fringe of Houston. Within the planned category, the 1,049,000 square feet, we've got 17 properties that fall into that category. 3 of those are REIT expansions, not new construction, but REIT expansions. 2 of those are public storage. 1 is Morningstar, and those are also in the outer perimeter of Houston, not in the core of Houston. And of the remaining 17 properties in the planned category, those are local and regional developers. Some worthy of mentioning, Robert Loeb, who's on here today. He's got 1 in the planned category, and Pinnacle Storage does as well. I think Morningstar has 1 planned as well. So, so it's a big improvement over previous quarters and years that Houston has experienced. If you look at the impact of that 1.5 million, it works out to about 2.4% of the total inventory that exists in Houston. That's roughly 63 million square feet. So this works out to 2.4%. You'll see my note down below where the REITs, the way that they calculate that same number, theirs is 2.7%, but they use a different denominator than we do. And if all of that square footage is completed, we'll end up at about 65 million square feet. Looking at rental rates, so trailing 12 months, 10 by 10 units, non-climate controlled, you can see that we've had a $3 decline. That's roughly equivalent to a 3.5% decrease. And on climate controlled, it's been slightly larger percentage and dollar amount, $4. So that's expected due to all of the recent additions to Houston's inventory prior to this calculation. And it's not unexpected. So there are other good signs that Houston is bottoming out in the cycle. And the first note that I've got there is that the REITs now rank Houston as 30th out of the top 30 cities that they monitor with regard to inventory expansion. Second item, we don't know exactly what Houston's overall occupancy is, but we estimated at 89 to 90%. However, that probably includes 1.5 to 2 points of excess occupancy that's due to paused auctions. You know, some of the owners that are on today, you know, you might weigh in one of the panels and talk about you know, how you're handling auctions and what your volume of auctions are. Next slide. The impact of COVID on Houston. It's had a blend of effects. I won't propose that any of them are positive, but it has had a side effect where we've had higher occupancy due to a number of different factors. And part of that news is positive in the sense that you know, the pause in auctions is one thing, but the surge of COVID on campuses is another variable, and it's caused some of the Texas universities and colleges to move towards 100% online classes, which does have an impact on storage. A good example of that is Texas A&M. They've been open for a week and they've already just now moved because of the COVID surge to 100% online for some period of time. Also, there will be improvements in the job losses that were caused by COVID. That will take some time. The big negative that I see, and I haven't seen anybody else really talk about it, is that the Mortgage Bankers Association, their metric for mortgages that are underwater, currently delinquent because of COVID, has surged pretty dramatically to 8.2% of mortgages in the United States. Texas and Houston probably have similar numbers. There's no reason why they wouldn't. And it could be that in the second half of 2020, we're going to see impacts from all of that as the foreclosure restrictions are lifted. So things could get ugly. That's not a prediction, but I am saying that we should be paying attention to it. The third category worth talking about with respect to Houston are the oil and gas sector layoffs. They've been substantial. The COVID layoffs peaked in March and April, and we have seen a nice rebound from that with some recovery. However, the timing of the oil and gas bankruptcies is going to be longer, and they will continue. And they may not peak until sometime in 2021. The net effect of job losses in Houston due to the combination of COVID and oil and gas was, one of the numbers I saw was about 276,000. I believe that's now down to about 250,000 that we do need to recover from. Our 2019 new jobs created was about 43,000. That's a fairly normal year, although the range over the last 10 years of new jobs for Houston has been anywhere from 40,000 to 100,000. And we're not expecting that for 2020. The latest number I saw for that was about 20,000 positive jobs, but that number can move around quite a bit. Real positive for Houston is its population growth. That will continue. It's embedded into the numbers, and the January prediction for population growth over the next 10 years is 1.2 million people. Really, really substantial. That equates to roughly 120,000 people per year. So that's going to have an impact on storage demand, and that will help absorb some of the vacancy that we currently have. And I do think it's worth mentioning that Harris County is now the third largest by population in the United States. So we have a very broad economic base and a number of different drivers in Harris County. And so I think that overall should help as well. Let me focus last on sales transactions. The main theme is that there's a mild volume of activity right now, and that's caused by several factors. It's interesting to point out that, and this is not new news, but the REITs purchased 0 properties in Houston during the second quarter. And there are several reasons for that. Most of them perceive Houston as being overbuilt, and that is certainly true in certain submarkets. It's not true across the board. There are, in particular, perimeter markets where there is still unmet demand. Also, one of the reasons that they will often avoid Houston is because that the oil and gas sector moves up and down quite a bit. It's fairly volatile. And the third kind of broad reason is their lack of comfort with the lack of zoning here. They perceive that it's easier to build. I think a number of developers, including Robert Loeb, would probably tell you that it's not easy because we still have deed restrictions and county codes that have to be met. But from the REIT's perspective, it's easier than typical zoning. The uncertainty of COVID has also meant that fewer owners have been in a position or willing to bring their storage facilities on the market. They want to see things stabilize before they choose to do that. I do think in the second half of 2020, we'll see more of those coming to market. The stabilized properties are selling well, and it has to do with risk. A stabilized property has a more stabilized NOI, more predictable, and people are looking for that as opposed to the higher returns that they might get with a lease-up deal, because there is significantly more risk associated with those lease-up deals. The lease-up cap rates that we're seeing are higher and in the range of 100 to 200 basis points, depending on the quality and location of the properties. C of O deals, certificate of occupancy deals, are absolutely dead in Texas. We haven't seen any in Houston in some time, you know, I don't expect to see many here in the future for a while until REITs get their comfort zone, get back into their comfort zone with respect to leasing and their perception of lease-up risk. So the REITs are the ones who typically do the C of O deals, but we've not seen many others. The lack of C of O deals has opened the door for mezzanine debt and equity. We're starting to see some of that creep in. It's one of the only other sources for solutions for some of these properties that were built and are not yet meeting their lease-up pro formas. So I mentioned briefly that Argus did a national survey. We also have data on many of the answers to the survey that relate to Texas. And so we have pulled together some slides that you can see how what the answers to those survey questions are. I think they're very instructive, and I think you'll enjoy getting it. Just let one of us know, either Faith or myself, send us an email or give us a call or a text, and we'll try and get that in your hands. We also have the full Argus survey, the national survey. We've been sending it out for several days now, and we've gotten a lot of requests for that, but we're happy to share that with everybody as well. So Jenny, with that, I'll hand it back off to you and let Tommy get started on his stuff.
Thank you. Hi, everyone. I'm Tammy Frost, Divisional Sales Manager and Marketing Director for Ehlert Building Systems, and we are so happy to sponsor the TSSA and today's Idea Exchange. Ehlert Building Systems has been in business since the early 90s, and just to give you an idea of about how far we've come in that time, we constructed nearly 1 million square feet of self-storage last year alone, and we were recently named number 12 out of America's top 100 metal building contractors by Metal Construction News. We are a general contractor, a single source designer, supplier, manufacturer, and installer for all types of self-storage buildings. So this means that we are capable of providing you with anything from building materials to a complete self-storage construction solution. Whether you're entering the business for the first time, renovating an existing facility, or considering expanding your existing business, Alert's here for you. Our friendly and experienced staff will guide you through the whole process from concept to completion and save you from wasted time and money. We'd like to thank everyone for attending today, as well as all the great folks at the TSSA for making today's event possible and for allowing Alert to be a part of it. You guys do such an outstanding job of creating opportunities for those of us in the self-storage industry to stay connected during these unprecedented times, and we really appreciate you.
We appreciate you, Tammy.